Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining in for another episode of State and Local Government, A Customer's Journey, hosted by Extreme Networks. In today's session, we're speaking with the city of Seguin, Texas. Here's how today's session will run and some brief house notes before we get started. Today's session is 30 minutes, and we want to try to get as many of your questions in as possible. So we'll try to end our session at around the 25 minutes mark and have a few minutes for Q&A after that. If we run out of time, we will reach out to each one of you individually, personally, and respond. Your lines are muted, but please ask questions in the Q&A line provided, and we'll try to answer as many as possible during the session, as well as during the Q&A period. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. I'm Brian O'Connor, and I'm your host today, and I will be moderating today's session. With me, as always, is Tom Fitzpatrick. Tom is heads up our consultant program here at Extreme Networks. Welcome, Tom.
Thanks, Brian.
Why don't you say a little bit about yourself and your program here at Extreme?
Yeah, sure. It's really simple. So I work with independent IT consultants, which I know a lot of you also work with them. So I guess my request to you is if you are working with IT consultants that you want them to know a little bit more about Extreme Networks, please send them my way. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you, Tom. Also, we have we're joined by Phil Gonzalez, who's our sales manager for South Texas, and also has a long history with the city of Seguin, as he was one of the sales engineers who helped architect and integrate the Extreme technology within the city. Welcome, Phil.
Thanks, Brian. So yeah, it's been a great journey from being the engineer to now the account manager of the site, and it's been a true honor to be a part of the journey for the city of Seguin and go from being a partnership to a friendship with you, Shane. So appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Phil.
We paid him to say that.
And last but not least, we want to welcome our special guest from the city of Seguin, Shane McDaniel. Shane is the CIO from the city of Seguin and has been with the city since 2018, I think. Shane?
Yes,
welcome.
Sir. Thank you. Excited to have this conversation. Excited to be on here with my buddy Phil. I was joking. I don't think they paid him to say it, but maybe they did. It's all good. So yeah, I'm ready when you are, guys.
Well, glad you're here. Well, let's get started. I know that just recently, the city of Seguin won a CSO 50 award, and that's a pretty outstanding award to win. And I know it took you a lot of time and sleepless nights and a lot of effort to get that award. What does that award mean to the city of Seguin and to you personally?
We not to toot our own horn too much, but we're pretty accustomed to hardware and recognition of, you could Google us and there's going to be a lot of stuff that comes up, magazines and podcasts, and that's just kind of how we do business here in Seguin. We're very transparent. The CSO 50 award in particular meant a lot to me because of the scope of it. The city of Seguin was the only local, state, or government entity to receive that very prestigious award last year. I was there at the event in Washington, D.C. with the likes of the Microsoft CISO, Zoom, United Airlines, a lot of other folks. I sat at the table with the CISO for CVS and was friendly with her. And there's the little old city of Seguin, Texas, right there in the mix, And so for us in our cyber program and how we have to do this in local government, through some of our value partners like Extreme and many others, it was just such an honor to fly up to DC and pick that bad boy up in person and to represent my city, my home. And so, yeah, it meant the world to me. So that's a good question. Thank you.
Outstanding award. Congratulations to you and your team.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I know you've been with the city of Seguin since 2018. And I'm sure that there have been multiple initiatives that were in place to address the city's growth, because the city has grown pretty significantly since you moved there.
Yes.
Give us an idea of some of the initiatives that were in place and how you had to scale your internal infrastructure to support a lot of those different initiatives that were coming your way.
Okay, yeah, happy to share. Whenever I showed up here in March of 2018. I inherited, which I assume a lot of the folks on the call here will understand this, a flat network, which was bizarre to me because I didn't think flat networks existed anymore. And boy, was I wrong about that. Apparently, they're way more prevalent than I ever realized. And for the folks that may not know what that means, all that means is dynamic routing was missing. So there was no layer 3. It was like old school static routes. someone had to intimately know the infrastructure to know like how the network was broken out and which, this building is connected to this building, that sort of thing. We got 30 facilities here in the city that we got to keep up with. So that was one of our first our first major initiative in conjunction with a huge effort to connect our data centers. We have 3 of them. Run as much fiber as we possibly could for our internal fiber ring. Today, I have all but 1 facility on city fiber. So all that work in conjunction with a year-long process to get ready to flip the switch to add layer 3, insert Phil there, we met him early on. The way that I landed on Extreme Networks was I simply looked at the Gartner's Magic Quadrant because I knew I wanted something premier class for our infrastructure. It was Cisco, it was Aruba, I believe, and it was Extreme. I was like, well, those are the 3 I want to talk to. And one of them, not to throw anybody under the bus, but like I knew the price point was beyond our means. So one of those 3 I didn't talk to. I'm sure if people know which one it is. But I met Phil and his running mate there very early on. And, there's a bit of an inside joke here in the city of Seguin, which is somewhat true, but, it's not that true. I like the color purple. So it was like a match made in heaven, right? I like seeing those purple boxes in our data centers and whatnot. It's not true completely, but it is kind of true. So anyway, we moved forward with that effort. Phil was there from like, soup to nuts, he was there all. He didn't get there at 4 o'clock in the morning like the rest of us, but he did show up that Saturday for the migration, and he helped lead us through. We had another great partner. I had most of my team on site, and we spent the better part of that one day with the year of planning and legwork that went into touching every single endpoint with an IP address and VLANs and all that stuff that had to be done, the fiber work that we did. And I'm so proud, because that day that we migrated, it went about as well as it possibly could have. And there's no way that would have been possible without the outstanding, staff that I have, the incredible partners like Phil that, I can trust. And he was there on site with us. He lives an hour plus away from me, but he showed up, like, hey, I want to be a part of this. It was a Saturday. He didn't have to do that. But there he was with us. And that just really speaks to the start of a really special relationship for the business partnership with the city's IT department. And man, it's been awesome ever since. It's been the baseline of all of those awards and all the great stuff that we've done with innovation and technology. It all runs through our Extreme network. And, you've been a great partner for us.
Outstanding. So when you kind of started that whole project, did you have a clear vision of what you wanted to achieve, or did that vision kind of change as the different initiatives moved?
I would say the baseline. I did. I do have an infrastructure background. I am a previous network guy, the fiber, cybersecurity, telecom. I can speak to that stuff pretty well. Particularly, my career has kind of gotten away from technology a little bit. I'm more into what I call the business of IT these days, the administrative side of running the department and stuff. But my work history spoke well to that. And our legacy network was in such a dated state that it allowed me to kind of comprehend that. So yes, the initial vision was there, but some of the growth that we've seen, like adding NAC, things of that nature, that was new to me. So it did evolve, I would say, organically. And Phil and that relationship just kind of being in my ear, like, hey man, you guys can do this. And he's always like talking to me about fabric switching and whatever. And so like, it's been a very good transition, and we will continue to build this thing out for the betterment of my community. You mentioned we are a rapidly growing community. We got 15,000 homes in various stages of development, 53 subdivisions in a city of 30,000 or so. So like, it's a little bit out of control. And so there's a lot of technology that's going into managing our growth efficiently, intelligently. And a lot of that, of course, is through technology, and it's running through the infrastructure that we set the baseline with Extreme. So it's I'm so glad we did it early on. And yeah, it's been fantastic.
So I got a question. On the cutover day, while you're there at 4 a.m, Phil wheels in what time? Really? And did he bring donuts?
Listen, I'm not going to throw Phil under the bus. I'm going to say 8:30, but I don't know if I'm actually being honest there. It might have been a little bit later than that, but yeah, let's say he came in with a smile on his face, and I'm sure he had donuts and
Bag of
snacks and
donuts.
everything. Yeah. Phil's an all right guy, man.
Tacos. That's where I roll.
Yeah,
Tacos.
tacos.
It's tacos.
There
Oh my
There you
gosh.
go. Makes
Yeah.
everybody happy.
Yeah. So quick question for you, Shane. So you talked about 30 locations, you talked about 3 data centers, you talked about adding NAC, all the preparation that went into this thing, and you talked about a flat network. And you did have to explain what a flat network is, but I know a lot of the folks on this call know what a flat budget is and know what flat headcount is, right? So there's a lot of things, as you know, that you're being challenged with. You've got a lot of folks that, workforce retirement. You are being forced to do what you got to do with what you got. It's not like you're throwing headcount at you, right? How are you doing what you're doing with what you got?
We first off, we have incredible support from our senior leadership, our city manager, our council. They've never said no to anything I've asked. All these, we've replaced and upgraded our entire technology infrastructure the past 5 years. And through their support, it's just been a very, we tackle these 2 things this year. And I budget everything through capital preparation. I landed in Seguin in March of 2018, and that put me right to the point where I have to have all the capital requests. I have to learn the infrastructure, learn the environment, learn staffing, learn the budgeting process in about 2 months there. So like I of course, realizing very early on, like we got a flat network. Oh my God, so like I wanted to upgrade the firewalls. I knew we had a VPN issue because I had the CFO in my ear. Like, can you please do something about people working? I'm trying to get into the financial system and it just doesn't work right. So that was the investment that we made early on because of the relationships that were being established and learning the environment and whatnot. So, and it just so happens I was able to justify these things. I can't just go into the budget meetings and say, hey, we need this. I got to find data and I got to use that to leverage to kind of explain, hey, we got all this stuff on the horizon. You say permitting is going to go up 500% in the next couple of years or something. Like we got to prepare for that. We can't just flip a switch, And thankfully, man, I might be in the best possible situation of any CIO out there because they have complete support for what we're doing here. I mean, literally this month, we're on the cover of Texas Municipal League, Texas Town and City Magazine. You can take a look at the May 2023 edition. That's a photo of the city of Seguin's downtown Central Park.
I saw you're on the cover too.
That's right. We're on the cover because that's how we get down in Seguin there. But there's about a 4-page feature in the middle, and it talks about all these different technology initiatives and whatnot that we've addressed these past few years. So that tells me that, again, we know we're in somewhat of a special environment. It's ironic because it is a blue collar city. It is we're kind of in a tough, resilient, sort of old school Texas environment, but they've embraced it. So yeah, that's why I say I must be the luckiest CIO out there. That includes staffing. I've added 4 FTEs in the past 5 years. We've stood up a GIS division. At one point, I think we were the smallest city in the state of Texas to have someone dedicated at cybersecurity. That's one of those new positions. So yeah, but at the same time, like I said, I can't just say I need these things. I'm taking the data that's consumed from the Extreme tool set and all these different other tools that we have in the environment. And I'm, kind of turning it into key performance indicators or, the pretty dashboard that I built for the city manager to kind of reflect this data. And yeah, it just so happens that they've had our back on it. And it's been incredible.
Yeah, fantastic. So, I mean, kind of to follow up, on Tom's question, right? I mean, I know when we first met, the size of the staff wasn't what it is today, right? Kind of like what you put out.
Yeah.
Or put out there, right? So, a major struggle when I identified, at least as an engineer, was just the management and visibility within the infrastructure you did have, even as we're going through the transition to be Extreme, right? So can you kind of elaborate on how, the appeal, like the Extreme network management solution kind of helped your team be more efficient in their day-to-day tasks?
Yes, absolutely. And I left something off too, because I'm a big advocate for educating staff and making an investment in the people and the technology necessary, right? It is kind of funny that Phil and his former running mate that kind of moved on to a different company there that's still friends with till this day, right? Like we kind of got off on a bad foot there a little bit because I beat them up about extreme training and like, hey, why can I throw a rock and get somebody in one of your competitors' classes for training? And it is so difficult to get an extreme training course set up. I have the money to invest in this. I want to send people. Like, how do I do it? And we finally got it figured out. And I got a couple of people certified on it. And that was perfect timing because we did make that migration and everything. And we needed that. So as far as the single pane of glass, and we have to find those efficiencies. I'm at 12 staffers now, 11 FTEs and 1 intern at this point. And we run the gamut, of course, fire and police. We have electric distribution, water, wastewater, a secondary water system, the 30 facilities. I have my city network extends 30 miles down the road, which is a little unusual for a city environment. So like, my guys, we're averaging 750 help desk requests a month. Last year, we supported, I believe it was 5960 capital efforts, some of which we led, some of which were just supporting partners. We're now on our 8th new facility in the past 5 years that we've stood up in the process, the architectural design, things like that. So we have to find those optimal efficiencies where we can. It's ironic to have a healthy enough budget to bring in some of these amazing tools and whatnot, but we still, with those 11 FTEs, I still don't have the resource availability necessary to like do all the things that these men and women are capable of doing. I have a very talented IT staff they can do anything, I think, but they're being pulled in 1,000 different directions and what have you. So it's imperative that we have things like the XMC, that single pane of glass, where we can dump our 80 switches in there and whatever we got to do, and the guys can. It's very different from, I used to be a command language guy, right? So like the GUI stuff is a little bit foreign to me. I see Phil kind of laughing there a little bit. So but yeah, that's how they manage our environment now, and we need things like that. The XMC has been an amazing tool for us. I'd encourage any of your listeners here, like, check it out, man. It's give Phil a call, he'll show it to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Additionally, one of the things that we were, as we're progressing through, the rollout of the Extreme solution within Seguin, was the conversation about Extreme's NAC solution, right? And so we've had a lot of discussions about it. It's been rolled out in different facets within the network. So, can you describe a little bit how it kind of fit into the security vision that you had for the city of Seguin?
Well, yes, absolutely. Where, the technology is still like a little fuzzy math to me. Like it's it's so funny. I have my security manager, and I probably asked him a good 3-4 times, can you explain this to me? What exactly is happening again? And he tries, and we both speak the same language. He's from Seguin, right? So like, we're both country guys, and we don't necessarily use the big tech terms and everything like that. I'm sure your listeners can hear it in my voice, right? But for some reason, I didn't necessarily grasp exactly what's happening here. But he's like, just, hey man, trust me, we want this. I went to an ESC, the Education Service Center, I believe is what that stands for, but our local region out of San Antonio. This has probably been 4 years ago now, and it was one of y'all's competitors, and they were talking like they gave like an 1.5-hour presentation on the capabilities of this technology, and the chunk of it was about NAC. And I didn't know much about it. I still, like I said, I don't think I understand it that well. But bringing it back to my guys and like, well, hey, let's get Phil on the horn and see if he knows anything about this. And like, yes, of course, dude, we could do that. And that just sort of got the ball rolling. And what I got out of that ESC event, where like they were just going on and on and on about it, like this is the be all end all of cybersecurity. I guess it was the big thing 4 years ago or something, right? And I was like, well, I'm at least going to try to learn this, and like maybe this is right for Seguin's environment. Maybe it's not. Maybe we can do it. Maybe we can't. I don't know, but at least ask the question. And come to find out, whenever we get Phil on the horn and he comes down here from time to time, and it's yep, you can do it. Maybe you got to expand your licensing here. We'll make it right in the next renewal, whatever. And so that's the kind of partnership that we have. I apologize, I can't deep dive on the technology. I can get Trip on the call here if you want. He can explain it to everybody.
Yeah, no, it's been a fun ride, right? I mean, long story short, I mean, we're doing policy-based authentication, right? So we're doing policy down to the edge ports when an authentication happens on a network and it secures things to the edge, makes it super easy and dynamic.
Mhm.
Yeah, it seems like it really locks it down. And what I got out of it, whenever you guys are trying to explain this to me, like somebody comes in and they're trying to plug in their external device, and you actually do have that cable drop kind of lined up with your switches, and that potentially it's a hot drop, right? And the wrong person can go in there and actually gain access with this NAC implementation. Like, no, that would never happen because of those
Right.
policies that are in place. And so we don't have, that's another thing we don't have to worry about. I personally don't like having those drops wired for that reason, if it's not already being utilized by a piece of city technology, but I get it. We might miss one or something, right? So.
Mhm. So one quick question I want to ask you, Shane, and I asked this of all the customers I talk to that do a major deployment like you did here. And I like to call it, what was your aha moment? Or we're always, when you did this, you're like, these are the outcomes that I'm looking for. This is what I expect to get out of this. But sometimes there's that surprise outcome, right? What was that aha or surprise outcome that you had? Was it good or was it bad?
I alluded to the 350 plus vendors that we've worked with in the past 5 years to just deliver the gamut of technology services for everything here in the city. The aha moment for me is whenever we started off, and I'm beating up Phil a little bit from the standpoint, like, my goodness, can we get my people trained? I want to give you money, Phil. Let's make this happen. And like sort of figuring that out. And we moved through the process that year that we spent touching all the endpoints and setting up everything for that transition, labeling cables. So like whenever we actually had to move the cabling from our old network to our new one, that transition would be simple, or we would hope it went well. We were hoping it would go that way. And so the aha moment for me is just the growth of, for just replacing the network, which is a huge deal, as any technology person will tell you. But the growth of the relationship and the partnership, whereas it wasn't just like, not to throw anybody, I'm not saying any names or anything, but a lot of people, they just want to sell you something and then move on to the next customer. That has never been the situation with Extreme. So like, and we leverage that. So, we have our new network in place, and Phil's in my ear like, well, that's cool. Like, we can do this too, or we can go this direction. And he's been trying to sell me goddamn access points for 5 years now. And I haven't bought one yet, but I'm going to. I kind of told him we got a new facility coming up. Like, Phil, if you will stop with this, I'll put them in that facility and we'll try them out. Right. So like, just having that relationship, and it has very much benefited my community because we expanded our technology capabilities based on this network that was put in place, and just how awesome and resilient it is. And so we're comfortable with the cybersecurity stuff. I mean, we're all just a click away, right? But like, I sleep well at night knowing some of the things that we have in place as much as possible. So
Right.
yeah, that's the aha moment for me, is that just how all this thing has like sort of organically grown over the few years. Like, it wasn't just like a rip and strip and put in the new network and see you later. It's been true growth here in the city of Seguin. It's been awesome.
It's great. And so it sounds like Phil needs to bring more tacos if he's going to get some access points in there. So
I
What I
can't
heard,
making a note of this.
I can't throw Phil under the bus for that, because he is outstanding. You know what I think the reason we hit it off so well is because there's this little hole in the wall kind of place down here that I think he really likes that place,
yeah,
and he just looks for excuses to come down and go, hey, I'm going to swing by and see Shane, and we're going to go grab some tacos. And like, I think there might be just maybe a little bit of it,
it's a mutually beneficial relationship.
There you go. Yeah.
So-
There you go. Well, listening to your discussion, Shane, on all the different topics, and then, culminating with that CSO 50 award that you just received just a little while ago, that really takes communication and collaboration amongst all the different stakeholders within your community. What would you say to the listeners on the phone to, as a recommendation for how they could possibly improve their communication and collaboration with the stakeholders that they work with on a regular basis?
My goodness, Brian, that is a fantastic question, man. So I alluded a little bit a few minutes ago about how my role has transitioned Am I supposed to use that word? Maybe not. Okay. Has changed over the years where, you know, I tell people that I'm barely an IT guy anymore. It's the business of IT. That's what I'm doing. I like making this little motion when I say that for some reason I noticed, so forgive me. But yeah, so much of what I do is relationship based. And I find those qualities where, you know, a lot of us IT types, we're introverts and we'd rather be working on the computer in the comm room as opposed to being out and, you know, kissing babies and shaking hands and all that nonsense, right? But that having that communication, that's I call it being genuine in life, you know, like it's not an act, right? We're a bunch of good old boys down here in Texas, and that's kind of the culture of the city. It's very reflective of the culture of the actual community. The city kind of reflects the community exceptionally well. And so like having those relationships, the rapport, whether it's with our, you know, the electric director office is right next to me, right? If he's helped us with all this fiber stuff, it's been an amazing relationship. He's sometimes a little grumpy, but that's okay. You know, like I am too. So yeah, like having those people that, you know, you can rely on and you have the relationships with, whether we're talking the city manager, all my peers with we got 23 different departments here in the city, and I got to have a good relationship. I have to provide a service to each and every one of them, in addition to the 500 city employees that we have that, you know, have those positions that rely on technology. And that doesn't come easy. It doesn't necessarily happen overnight. Like they have to know that, hey, Shane's saying he can do this. You know, he's an accountable guy. If he says he's going to do something, he's going to do it. And you know that is built up over time. But that also means I have to have that in my mind whenever I'm committing to an action that, hey, I have to come through. And even if I can't deliver on such and such day, such and such time, whatever it is we agreed upon, I have to own the communication necessary to give that person a heads up, like, man, I'm so sorry, we can't make it. Can I get to this next week? You know, will you be okay? And so like just it's just the people skills. It's not technology, it's just the people skills necessary to run an environment. And it just so happens I'm in a perfect situation based on who I am as a person, the culture that I work in. And so yeah, that's kind of how we do business here in Seguin, and I think it applies to everyone, honestly.
Well, great. Appreciate your candor on that. Well, it looks like we're running close to the end of time, and we do have a couple of questions in the Q&A. Tammy, would you mind reading the current one of the questions in so Shane can answer that before we adjourn, please?
Yeah, sure. So it looks like we have a question that says, Shane, what would you say to someone considering making the jump to extreme, but they're held up as they're used to what they've been doing for the past 20 plus years?
That's you know what? Been working in technology for 27 years, right? And you know, I'm from a small town in East Texas where you know, change isn't the easiest thing for some people, a lot of people, I would say. But working in IT, I came to the realization, I think kind of early on, like you have to embrace change because IT is constantly evolving, constantly changing. You know, you can't say that I don't care about that new ransomware street, you know, whatever out there, right? That because I you know that's not the way that we managed this in the past, so I'm just not going to worry about that. Things don't work like that, right? So you have to embrace change to a certain degree as someone in a position of leadership. You want people to buy in, you want to make that investment in people, and like, hey, sometimes it is candid conversations. I would like you to grow in this direction. Hey, what do you think about extreme networks and this technology? Would you mind doing some research? Would you mind talking to Phil and like just educate yourself and come back to me? Can we do this in our environment? Maybe it's a, you know, sort of pushing them in that direction. If all else fails and you need to go that direction, sometimes you just got to rip the band-aid. And sometimes I'll run into that because, you know, change isn't easy, like I said, for everybody. So there are different ways to approach it. I always want to, you know, be more of an advocate versus, you know, it's my way or the highway. That's not how I never want to do business that way. So I want to build that excitement for the growth in technology. So that's the way we approach it. My team, I mentioned early on in the call, you know, we've won 17 awards in the past 5 years for different things in innovation. This very project's been awarded from, you know, some of the cool stuff that we've done. And I think that also builds momentum too. Like, hey, this is how we get down in the city of Seguin. Either you're with us or you're not. And if you don't embrace that technology, if you're not willing to dive in and learn what you need to know, like maybe this isn't the right environment for you. You need to be in a place that's more stagnated or whatnot. We are not a stagnant environment. So like it is a culture as well. So that's my approach. I don't know if that works for everybody, but it works for us.
Well, Shane, thanks so much for being a part of this session that we're having today. We really appreciate your insight and your support of Extreme Networks. Tom, thanks for hosting as always. Phil, thanks for being here with us, and look forward to seeing us on another episode of State and Local IT Trends, A Customer Journey. Thank you, everyone.